The Galactic Council chamber fell silent when Ambassador Vexnar stood to speak. His 4 eyes blinked rapidly, a sign of deep distress among his species. The holographic display behind him showed a map of the contested Rim territories, where the Krath Dominion had been conquering world after world for the past 3 cycles. "We have lost 17 colony worlds," Vexnar said, his voice heavy with defeat. "The Krath show no mercy. They burn cities, they enslave populations, they leave nothing but ash and bones behind." Council members shifted uncomfortably in their seats. The Krath were a warrior species that lived only for conquest. Their soldiers were bred for battle, enhanced with cybernetic implants, and trained from birth to kill. No species in the known galaxy had ever defeated them in ground combat. "What of the fleet?" asked Counselor Myra of the Delthian Union. Her silver skin reflected the chamber lights as she leaned forward. "Can we not simply bombard their forces from orbit?" "The Krath have developed shield technology that protects their ground forces. Our orbital strikes are useless. We must defeat them on the surface, soldier against soldier." Vexnar paused. "And we cannot." A murmur ran through the chamber. Everyone knew this truth, but hearing it spoken aloud made it real. The coalition forces had tried. Brave warriors from a dozen species had faced the Krath on the ground. None had survived. "There may be another option," said a quiet voice from the back of the chamber. All heads turned to see Counselor Thren of the Information Guild. The small, gray-skinned being rarely spoke during sessions. When he did speak, however, others listened. "We have recently made contact with a new species," Thren continued. "They call themselves humans. They come from a planet called Earth in the outer spiral arm." "Another primitive species," someone asked with dismissal. "What use are they?" "They are not primitive. They have achieved faster-than-light travel independently, but more importantly, they have a military tradition unlike anything we have ever seen." Thren activated his own display, showing footage from a recent human conflict. "They call this war." The council watched in stunned silence as human soldiers moved across the screen. They used cover, communicated with hand signals, and worked together with perfect coordination. But what truly shocked the council was the ferocity. Human soldiers charged into enemy fire. They fought with weapons, with tools, with their bare hands when necessary. They screamed battle cries and refused to retreat even when wounded. "They fight like demons," Vexnar whispered, "like creatures from nightmare." "Yes," Thren agreed, "but that is not the most remarkable thing about humans. Watch what happens after the battle ends." The footage changed to show the aftermath. Human soldiers moved among fallen enemies, but instead of executing them or leaving them to die, the humans were treating their wounds. Medics worked frantically to save lives, showing the same intensity and healing as their comrades had shown in fighting. "I do not understand," said Counselor Myra. "They heal their enemies." "It is part of their code," Thren explained. "Humans have something they call rules of war. They believe that once a battle is won, the fighting stops. Wounded enemies become patients. Prisoners become protected persons. They separate the act of war from the act of cruelty." "That makes no sense. Why waste resources on defeated enemies?" "Because humans fight for purpose, not pleasure. They do not enjoy killing. They do it because they must. And when the need ends, so does the killing." The council debated for hours. Some argued that bringing in unknown aliens was too dangerous. Others said any ally was better than facing the Krath alone. In the end, desperation won. A message was sent to Earth, requesting military assistance. 2 weeks later, the human response arrived at the Coalition staging base. 5,000 soldiers stepped off their transport ships and assembled in perfect formation. They wore armored suits in patterns of green and brown. They carried weapons that looked crude compared to Coalition energy rifles, but well-maintained and functional. General Chen Wei stood at the front of her troops. She was not tall by human standards, but she carried herself with an authority that made even the largest aliens take notice. Her dark hair was cut short, and her eyes surveyed the coalition representatives with calm assessment. General Chen, Ambassador Vexnar greeted her. "We thank you for coming. The situation is dire." "Ambassador," Chen replied with a nod, "my government has reviewed your reports on the Krath. They are a formidable enemy, but we have fought formidable enemies before." "You do not understand. The Krath are unlike anything you have faced. They feel no fear. They show no mercy. They fight until every enemy is dead or enslaved." General Chen smiled slightly. "Ambassador, humans have been fighting wars against each other for thousands of years. We have faced enemies who felt no fear, showed no mercy, and fought to the last breath. We are still here. Our enemies are not." She turned to observe the coalition soldiers training in the distance. Delthians, Keth, Vorton, and a dozen other species practiced combat drills. They moved well, Chen noted, but there was something missing. They fought like they expected to lose. "Your soldiers are disciplined," she said carefully, "but they do not believe they can win." Vexnar lowered his head. "Many have seen friends die against the Krath. They have seen entire units destroyed in minutes. It is hard to believe in victory when you have only known defeat." "Then that is the first thing we must change." General Chen turned back to the ambassador. "Before we can defeat the Krath, your soldiers must learn to fight like humans. Not our tactics necessarily, but our mindset. We fight expecting to win. We fight knowing that defeat is possible but refusing to accept it." "And the healing?" Vexnar asked. "We have heard that humans treat wounded enemies. Is this true?" "It is true. When the battle ends, we provide medical care to all who need it, friend or foe. This is not weakness, ambassador. This is strength. The Krath fight because they love destruction. We fight because we love life. Every life we save, even an enemy life, proves that we are better than them." Ambassador Vexnar reached out and grasped the general's extended hand. Her grip was strong and warm. For the first time in many cycles, he felt something he had almost forgotten: hope. The training began the next day. General Chen divided her forces into small teams and embedded them with coalition units. Human sergeants worked alongside alien soldiers, teaching them the fundamentals of human combat doctrine. Sergeant Marcus Thompson stood before a group of 20 Delthian soldiers. They towered over him, their silver bodies twice his mass, but they watched him with careful attention as he spoke. "The first thing you need to understand," Thompson said, "is that you are already dead. Every single one of you. Accept this truth and you will fight without fear. Reject it and fear will kill you before the enemy does." The Delthians exchanged confused looks. Their translator devices had rendered the words correctly, but the meaning was unclear. "I do not understand," said one soldier named Kira. "If we are dead, why do we fight?" "Because being dead does not mean giving up. It means letting go of the fear of death. Once you stop being afraid to die, you can focus entirely on making the enemy die instead. You fight harder. You think clearer. You become dangerous." He demonstrated with a training drill, moving through obstacles while simulated enemy fire erupted around him. His movements were fast, decisive, without hesitation. When he reached the final position, he turned back to his students. "I did not stop to wonder if I would be hit. I assumed I would be hit and focused on completing the mission anyway. This is how humans fight. We accept death as a possibility and then ignore it." Kira stepped forward. "But the Krath truly do not fear death. They have been engineered to lack this fear entirely." "That is their weakness," Thompson said, surprising the Delthians. "The Krath have no fear because they were made that way. They do not choose to be brave. We choose. Every moment of every battle, we choose to push forward despite our fear. That choice makes us stronger than any genetic modification." In another part of the base, Dr. Sarah Okonkwo was training coalition medics in battlefield medicine. The aliens watched with fascination as she demonstrated techniques for treating wounds under fire. "You must understand," she said, "that keeping soldiers alive is just as important as killing enemies. A dead soldier cannot fight. A wounded soldier, treated quickly, can return to battle. Medicine is a force multiplier." A Keth medic raised a tentacle in question. "But you also heal enemies. This seems counterproductive." "It serves multiple purposes," Dr. Okonkwo explained. "First, it demonstrates to our own soldiers that they will be cared for if wounded. This improves morale and encourages risk-taking. Second, it can encourage enemy surrender. Soldiers who know they will be treated well are more likely to give up than fight to the death. Third, it maintains our humanity. War can turn people into monsters if we let it. Showing mercy reminds us what we are fighting for." "The Krath do not surrender," the Keth medic pointed out. "They fight until destroyed. Then we will heal their wounded after the battle anyway, because it is who we are, not who they are, that matters." General Chen watched the training from a command post, reviewing reports and planning the first engagement. Intelligence suggested that a Krath force was preparing to attack the colony world of Vexen 3. The planet had a population of 2 million, mostly agricultural workers and their families. "The Krath fleet will arrive in 12 days, said her aide, Lieutenant Commander Rodriguez. "They will establish orbital dominance and then begin landing troops." "And the colony's defenses?" "Minimal. A small garrison of coalition soldiers, perhaps 500 total. They have been ordered to evacuate civilians, but there is not enough transport capacity. Most of the population will still be there when the Krath arrive." Chen studied the tactical display. Vexen 3 was a flat world, mostly plains and farmland. Few natural defensive positions. The Krath would have numerical superiority and air support from their ships. "We will fight there," she decided. "Deploy our full force to Vexen 3. Rodriguez looked surprised. "General, the terrain offers no advantages. Would it not be better to choose a more defensible position?" "Lieutenant Commander, 2 million civilians will die if we do not fight there. That is not acceptable. We did not come here to win easily. We came here to win. Period." News of the human decision spread quickly through the coalition forces. Many were shocked that the newcomers would choose such an unfavorable battleground. Others were inspired by the humans' willingness to fight for strangers. The transport ships launched that evening, carrying 5,000 human soldiers and 3,000 coalition troops toward their first battle together. In the darkness of space, they prepared for a fight that would change the galaxy forever. The colony of Vexen 3 was quiet when the defenders arrived. Farmers stood in their fields, watching as transport ships descended from the sky. They had heard rumors about the humans, these new aliens who had come to fight the Krath. Most did not believe the stories. How could any species defeat the Krath in ground combat? General Chen established her command post in the colony's administrative center. She immediately began organizing the defense, sending teams to scout positions and prepare fortifications. "We have 8 days before the Krath arrive," she announced to her officers. "In that time, we will transform this colony into a death trap for any invader. Every road will be mined. Every building will be a strongpoint." Captain James Adebyo, commanding the Human Engineering Company, spread out his plans on the table. "We can create overlapping fields of fire here, here, and here. The Krath will have to cross open ground to reach the main settlements. We will make them pay for every step." Work began immediately. Human engineers showed coalition troops how to dig fighting positions that could withstand artillery fire. They taught them to create false positions that would draw enemy attention, while real defenders remained hidden. They transformed peaceful farmhouses into fortified bunkers and open fields into killing grounds. Sergeant Thompson worked alongside his Delthian trainees, filling sandbags and setting up firing positions. The alien soldiers had never performed such labor before. Among their species, construction was work for specialized castes, not warriors. "Why do we build our own defenses?" Kira asked, struggling with the unfamiliar weight of a sandbag. "Should there not be others to do this work? Every position you build with your own hands, you will fight harder to defend. You know its strength and weakness. Building your own position is not beneath a warrior. It is part of being a warrior." Kira considered this as she placed the sandbag on the growing wall. The logic made sense. She could already see how this position would protect her during a firefight. The knowledge gave her confidence. "Your people have fought many wars," she said. "Have you always been this way?" Thompson laughed. "Not always. We had to learn, usually the hard way. Our history is full of generals who thought labor was beneath them, who refused to prepare defenses. They lost. The survivors learned. Now we teach what we learned to others." As the days passed, the colony transformed. Roads that had been simple dirt paths became carefully prepared kill zones, with hidden explosives and concealed firing positions. Buildings that had housed families became fortresses. The population, initially frightened, began to assist with the preparations. 3 days before the expected arrival of the Krath fleet, General Chen called a meeting of all senior officers. "Intelligence reports that the Krath force consists of approximately 15,000 soldiers," Chen said. "They will land in waves, with the first assault focused on destroying our defensive positions. They will expect us to break quickly, as all previous defenders have done." "They outnumber us significantly," observed a Keth commander. "Even with our preparations, can we hold?" "Holding is not our only goal. We must defeat them completely. This battle must become a message to the entire Krath Dominion, a message that says, the old rules no longer apply." She touched the display, highlighting several positions. "These are our primary defensive lines. When the Krath land, we will let them advance into these zones. Then we will close the trap. Artillery from here and here. Infantry assault from concealed positions. We will destroy their first wave entirely." General Chen looked around the room at the faces of her commanders. Humans, Delthians, Keth, and others. Different species, different cultures, but now united in a single purpose. "I will not lie to you," she said. "This battle will be hard. Many of us will die. But I promise you this, we will not die for nothing. Every life we give will be paid for in enemy blood. And when this is over, the galaxy will know that the Krath can be beaten." Private Elena Vasquez sat in her fighting position, watching the sky for signs of the approaching fleet. She was 22 years old, from a small town on Earth that she might never see again. Around her, soldiers from 3 different species waited together. "Are you afraid?" asked the Delthian beside her. His name was Torek, and he had been assigned to her squad 3 days ago. "Yes," Vasquez admitted. "I would be stupid not to be afraid, but I will fight anyway." "Why? Why do humans fight when you know you might die?" "Because some things are worth dying for. Those civilians in the shelters, they did nothing wrong. They just wanted to live their lives. The Krath want to take that from them. I cannot stop the Krath alone, but together we might be able to. And even if we cannot, at least we tried." A rumble in the distance drew their attention skyward. Beyond the atmosphere, the first Krath ships were dropping out of faster-than-light travel. The battle for Vexen 3 was about to begin. The Krath fleet filled the sky like a plague of metal locusts. 60 warships took positions in orbit, their weapons pointed down at the world below. Transport ships began their descent, carrying thousands of soldiers eager for conquest. In the command post, General Chen watched the tactical display as enemy formations approached. The Krath were following their standard pattern: overwhelming force, rapid deployment, brutal efficiency. "First wave landing in 3 minutes," reported Lieutenant Commander Rodriguez. "Approximately 5,000 troops in the initial assault." Hold fire until they reach the primary engagement zone, Chen ordered. Let them think we are weak. The Krath landing craft touched down in the open fields north of the main settlement. Soldiers poured out in disciplined formations, their cybernetic enhancements gleaming in the sunlight. They were large beings, humanoid but with thick armored skin and multiple arms that carried weapons with casual ease. The Krath commander, a veteran named Vornak, surveyed the terrain through enhanced optics. He saw the defensive positions the coalition had built, crude fortifications of earth and stone, a few scattered units of defenders who seemed to be withdrawing at his approach. Weak, he declared to his subordinates, press the attack, destroy them all. The Krath advanced in a massive wave, confident in their superiority. They had conquered dozens of worlds with this same approach. The enemy always broke, the enemy always ran. They entered the kill zone. Now, General Chen said quietly. The world exploded. Hidden artillery positions opened fire simultaneously, dropping shells directly into the advancing Krath formation. Mines detonated beneath their feet. Machine guns erupted from concealed bunkers, creating walls of deadly fire. The Krath, caught completely by surprise, staggered under the assault. Private Vasquez fired her weapon steadily, picking targets with careful precision. Beside her, Torek added his own fire to the barrage. The Krath were falling by the dozens. Keep firing, Sergeant Thompson shouted. Do not let them recover. The Krath tried to organize a response, but their communications were jammed and their formations were shattered. Soldiers who had expected an easy victory found themselves fighting for survival. Commander Vornak roared orders that no one could hear. He watched his elite soldiers fall around him, cut down by an enemy that should have been helpless. This was not possible. No species had ever stood against the Krath. Fall back, he finally commanded, his pride broken by necessity. Fall back to the landing zone. But the trap was not yet finished. As the Krath retreated, human soldiers emerged from hidden positions on their flanks. They attacked with grenades and close-quarters weapons, cutting off the escape route. The retreat became a rout. Push them, Chen ordered. Do not give them time to reorganize. Coalition troops charged forward alongside their human allies. For the first time, they were not running from the Krath. They were chasing them. In 30 minutes, it was over. The first Krath wave had been destroyed. 5,000 soldiers reduced to scattered survivors desperately calling for extraction. General Chen surveyed the aftermath from her command post. Casualty reports showed that her forces had lost 200 soldiers, but the Krath had lost nearly 5,000. Send out the medical teams, she ordered. Human and coalition medics working together. Treat wounded Krath alongside our own. General Rodriguez looked surprised. The Krath wounded. Treat them. The universe is watching this battle. We will show them who we are. Medical teams moved across the battlefield, collecting the wounded. Krath soldiers who had expected execution found themselves carried to treatment stations. Human doctors worked to save their lives. One wounded Krath warrior stared in confusion as a human medic treated his wounds. Why? He managed to ask. We are enemies. You would have tried to kill me, the medic replied calmly. But the battle is over. You are a patient now, not an enemy. Rest. Let us help you. In orbit, the Krath fleet commander received the casualty reports with growing fury. 5,000 soldiers lost in less than an hour. This was unprecedented. Launch the second wave, he commanded. Double the numbers, crush them. 10,000 Krath soldiers began their descent, but this time they came prepared for resistance. This time they came angry. General Chen watched the new wave approaching. Prepare for their response. They will not underestimate us again. This will be the true test. The second Krath wave landed with heavy weapons and armored vehicles. They advanced more cautiously now, expecting traps. They found them anyway. Human special forces struck from hidden positions, destroying vehicles and killing officers. Coalition snipers picked off soldiers from impossible distances. The craft made progress, but they paid in blood for every meter. Night fell, but the fighting continued. Small teams of defenders moved through the darkness, striking isolated craft units and vanishing before reinforcements arrived. By morning, the second craft wave had suffered 30% casualties. They had advanced perhaps 2 kilometers toward the main settlement. The price was thousands of lives. Commander Vornak stood before a holographic display in the craft command ship, trying to explain the situation to his superiors. "Then send more troops," demanded the fleet commander. "Send all of them. Overwhelm these humans with numbers." The third wave consisted of every remaining soldier in the fleet. 15,000 warriors descended upon the colony like a storm of iron and fire. General Chen watched them come. "All units, this is General Chen. The enemy is bringing their full strength against us. They believe that numbers alone can win this battle. We will teach them otherwise. Hold your positions. Fight for the soldier beside you." The final battle for Vexen 3 began. The ground shook with the thunder of artillery and the crash of explosions. Craft soldiers advanced in massive formations while defenders fired from every concealed position. The air was thick with smoke and the smell of burning. Private Vasquez crouched behind a shattered wall, reloading her weapon. Torek lay beside her, wounded but still fighting. They had been pushed back from 3 positions already. "We cannot hold much longer," Torek said, his voice weak. "They are too many." "We hold until we are told to fall back," Vasquez replied. "Or until we cannot hold anymore. Either way, we do not give up." Sergeant Thompson's voice crackled over the radio. "All units, fall back to defensive line 4. We are consolidating for the final stand." They reached line 4, the last defensive position before the main settlement. Here, General Chen had concentrated all remaining forces. Humans and coalition soldiers stood together behind walls of reinforced earth. Chen stood in the center of the line, refusing to shelter in the command post. She held a rifle in her hands, ready to fight alongside her soldiers. "This is where we stand," she announced. "No more retreating. They come here and they die here." The craft assault hit like a wave against a cliff. Thousands of warriors charged the defensive line. Defenders fired continuously, creating a wall of deadly projectiles. Bodies fell on both sides. Hours passed. The sun moved across the sky, hidden by smoke and ash. Still the battle raged. Casualties mounted on both sides, but neither would yield. The craft could not break the line. The defenders could not stop the assault. And then something changed. Commander Vornak stood in the middle of the battlefield, urging his soldiers forward. He had watched thousands of his warriors fall. He had seen the human defenders fight with impossible determination. Now, for the first time in his life, he felt something he had never felt before: doubt. These enemies were not like any others. They did not break. They did not surrender. They died where they stood, and others took their place. A human soldier appeared before him, rifle raised. Vornak prepared to die, but the human did not fire. "It is over," General Chen said, stepping forward. Her armor was scorched and bloody, but her voice was steady. "Your assault has failed. Look around you. Your army is broken." Vornak looked. She was right. The massive craft force had been shattered. Survivors were scattered across the battlefield, no longer fighting but wandering in shock. "You cannot win," Vornak said, though his voice lacked conviction. "More ships will come. Then we will defeat them too, but it does not have to be that way. Surrender. Accept defeat with honor. Your wounded will be treated. Your survivors will be returned. No more of your soldiers need to die today." She lowered her rifle and extended her empty hand. "Why?" he asked. "Why do you offer this? We came to destroy you." "I know, but the battle is over. You are not my enemy anymore. You are a wounded soldier who needs help. That is who humans are. We fight like demons because we must. We show mercy because we choose to." The Krath commander stood silent for a long moment. Around them, fighting had stopped as soldiers from both sides watched. Finally, slowly, Vornak reached out and took Chen's hand. "We surrender," he said. "The Krath force on this world yields to you." A murmur ran through both armies. Krath soldiers looked at each other in confusion. This was unprecedented. The Krath never surrendered. "Put down your weapons," Chen called out. "The fighting is over. Medical teams begin treatment of all wounded. Treat them with respect." They fought bravely. Human and coalition medics rushed forward, treating wounded Krath alongside their own injured. Soldiers who had been killing each other moments ago now worked together to save lives. Private Vasquez sat down heavily, exhaustion finally catching up with her. Torek collapsed beside her. "We won," he said, disbelief in his voice. "We actually won." "We did, and now we help them." She gestured toward a wounded Krath soldier nearby. "Come on, let us show them what humans and their friends are made of." Together they limped toward the wounded Krath soldier. The warrior looked up at them with fear in his eyes, expecting death. Instead, Vasquez knelt down and began examining his injuries. "Hold still, we are going to help you." "Why?" the Krath asked. "Because you need help. That is all the reason we need." News of the Battle of Vexen III spread across the galaxy like wildfire. The Krath Dominion had been defeated in ground combat. Their soldiers had surrendered. An army that had never known defeat had been broken by a species no one had heard of before. In the Galactic Council chamber, Ambassador Vexnar reported on the outcome. The human forces sustained significant casualties, but they held. The colony is safe. "And the prisoners?" Counselor Myra asked. "They are being treated in human medical facilities. General Chen has established a prisoner camp that meets all standards of humane treatment. The Krath are confused. They do not understand why they are being fed and healed instead of executed." "This will change things," Thren observed. "The Krath have never been offered mercy before. This may plant seeds of doubt in their entire civilization." On Vexen III, General Chen walked through the medical facility where Krath prisoners were being treated. She stopped at the bedside of Commander Vornak. "You are healing well," she observed. Vornak looked at her with confusion still evident in his eyes. "I do not understand you. We came to destroy your allies, yet you treat me as if I were a valued guest. You were my enemy, now you are my patient. The difference matters to humans." "But why?" Chen sat down beside his bed. "Let me tell you something. On Earth we fought many wars against each other, terrible wars. We learned that cruelty breeds cruelty. When you torture prisoners, the enemy fights to the death because they have no hope of mercy. When you treat prisoners well, the enemy is more willing to surrender. Mercy is not just ethical, it is practical." Vornak considered this. "The Krath have never thought of peace. We are bred for war. Purposes can change. You have seen today that you can be defeated. Perhaps now you can imagine other ways to live." The war that followed lasted 3 years. The Krath sent larger forces, and the Alliance, trained by humans, defended a dozen worlds with skill and determination. The battles were brutal and costly, but the Alliance held. And everywhere they fought, the humans maintained their strange code. They battled like demons during the conflict, but when battles ended, they showed mercy. They treated wounded enemies. They protected prisoners. They refused to become the monsters they fought against. The war ended not with a final victory, but with something unprecedented in Krath history, a negotiated peace. The Dominion, exhausted and internally divided, accepted terms that would have been unthinkable before. And most remarkably, they asked to learn from their former enemies. General Chen was given the task of answering their questions. "We are not born warriors," she explained. "We become warriors when we must, to protect those we love. We fight without mercy during battle because our enemies give us no choice. But we show mercy after battle because we remember what we are fighting for. If we abandon mercy ourselves, we have already lost." Years later, Ambassador Vexnar visited a monument built on Vexen 3. It honored all who had died in the first battle, human and coalition and Krath alike. Beside him stood Admiral Chen. Her hair had turned gray, but her eyes still held the same steady fire. "Do you think it will last?" Vexnar asked. "The peace?" "Nothing lasts forever, but we have planted seeds. The Krath who survived that first battle, the ones we treated with mercy, they went home and told stories. Stories about humans who fought like demons and healed enemies after victory. Those stories changed minds, changed hearts. And if war comes again—" Chen smiled slightly. "Then we will fight again. We will show the universe that strength and mercy can exist together. That is the human way." She touched the monument gently, her fingers tracing the names of fallen soldiers. So many lost, but their deaths had purchased something precious: hope. "Come," she said. "There is a ceremony to attend. Veterans from both sides are gathering to honor their dead together, humans and Krath standing side by side in peace." "That would have seemed impossible once," Vexnar said. "Everything seems impossible until someone makes it possible. That is what humans do. We make the impossible real." The ambassador followed her, feeling again that emotion he had first experienced so many years ago, when a human general had taken his hand and promised to teach the Krath a new way. Hope. The humans had come as warriors. They had fought like demons. They had healed their enemies, and in doing so they had changed the galaxy forever.